السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Ask Allah to make this another beneficial sitting from this very important book for the life of the Muslim, 40 Hadith of Imam Nawawi. We are studying the statements of the Prophet ﷺ, which are from the wahi that Allah has given to him. To ask Allah to make it penetrate in our hearts and have an effect on our lives and make us better people in the dunya and secured of a reward in the akhirah. We finished the first hadith. We kind of left it hanging where we were going to talk about more principles, but we didn't get a chance last lesson. But I think it's fitting if we move on now to the second hadith, which is on the authority of Umar radiallahu anhu. It's a very long hadith, so I will just stick to the English and refer to the Arabic when we need to. Now, this hadith is a time where the Prophet ﷺ met Jibril, and some of the ulama of hadith, Imam Muslim, Bukhari, have placed this hadith in Bab Badr al-Wahi, which is the beginning of revelation. And it wasn't the first time in this hadith that the Prophet ﷺ met Jibril. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ before this event met Jibril on many occasions. And one of those occasions he met him in his true form. And the Prophet ﷺ explained that after the wahi began with Iqra, a few days later he hadn't heard from this angel giving him the wahi. So he kept going back to Hira. He was scared at the same time, but he kept going back to Hira at the same time. And some of the ulama have deduced from this that the Prophet ﷺ, as soon as he received revelation of the Quran, he found the enjoyment within it straight away. But at the same time, he was startled, he was scared. Went back to his wife's house and he was obviously very frightened. The first time he met him, Jibril hugged him and he told him to say Iqra, in the well-known story that we know of. But the question now, some of the ulama have asked, what is the emphasis behind this hugging? Why did he hug him? Why did he hold him so firmly? Told him to read, couldn't read, hugged him, to the extent that some of the narrations say that he was about to be suffocated to that extent. Some of the ulama said that, some of the narrations say that he was hugged. Imam Nawawi talks about this in Sharh Sahih Muslim, and some of them have stated that he was held at his cuff. And the point here is that he was firmly held by Jibril and when he was told to read. Imam Nawawi explains that Jibril was commanded to tell Prophet ﷺ to read, and when he said Ma ana bika, I can't read, he held him. And the emphasis on this is to show that something amazing is about to happen, something very important in your life is about to happen, so pay attention. It's not going to be easy, and you're going to have to be strong, and you're going to have to be firm. So he went back and he was scared, and his wife Khadija radiallahu anha comforted him and assured him, and like we said, he kept going back even though he was scared. And the hadith of Jabir, which states that he went continuously, and some of the ulama say that he went for a period of 3 nights, going back to the same location, hopefully the next night meeting Jibril again, receiving more revelation again, so he can recite the words of his Lord again, but he didn't meet him. Thereafter, he saw Jibril come down on his own arsh, the arsh of Jibril. And he saw him and he filled the horizon. and he described him as having 600 wings, alayhi salam, Jibril. Now, if he wasn't scared before, he was definitely scared now. It's an amazing sight, it's an awesome sight. He ran back home and he said to his wife, Zammiluni dathiruni, cover me up, cover me up. Some of the narrations say that he was trembling and sweating on a warm night. He was trembling and sweating on this is the level of fear that he had. And then Allah revealed to him, Ya ayyuhal muddathir, qum fa'anzir, wa rabbaka fakabbir. Allah revealed to him, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, qum al-layla illa qalila. Stand the night in prayer, or half of it, or a third of it. Inna والليل إلا قليلا إنا سننزل عليك قولا ثقيلا. There's going to be a weighty word that's going to be revealed upon you. So what's the preparation? Preparation is in this context. Get closer to your Lord in worship, because the path ahead of you is going to be a path of victory, it's going to be a path of success, but it's not going to be easy. The question now, this is after 3 or 4 nights, the first week of revelation, the first week he became a messenger, he's told to stand half the night in prayer. There's no Quran. What has he got? He's got Iqra, the first 5 lines, and he's got some of Muddathir, he's got some of Muzammil. So what's he doing? This is a point where the ulama have taken that reciting the Quran, pondering upon the Quran, pondering upon the adhkar, is the actual essence of you standing in front of Allah. Not about how much you know and how much you recite. It's about the quality. And this is what Allah commanded the Prophet ﷺ to prepare himself with. Imam Nawawi also talks about this incident of Iqra, where he grabbed him and he held him firm. He said that also we learn from this incident that this is now at the beginning of a relationship between student and pupil. Who's the student and who's the pupil? Question. Is Muhammad ﷺ the student, or is he the pupil? Who is the pupil, who is the teacher? Is he the student, or is he the teacher? Or is Jibril the student, or is he the teacher? Jibril is the teacher. Allamahu shadid al-quwa, dhu mirrati fastawa. The Prophet ﷺ has been taught by somebody who is firm, who is obeyed, muta'in thumma ameen, he is obeyed by all of the angels in the heavens. So Imam Nawawi said that this incident actually shows you the beginning of a student and teacher relationship. And this here hadith here we have of Umar radiallahu an, Amir al-Mu'mineen, who said that he was sitting with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam one day, clearly shows all of this within that context. And this is the background of this hadith. It's not the first time he met Jibril, it's not the first time he came to him as a teacher, it's not the first time he taught him the emphasis of the importance of Islam and its actions. So really the fawaid and the benefits in this hadith, some of the ulama have written books about just about this hadith. So I really don't think that we'll be able to cover it for the sake of the lessons continuing and the explanation being brief. But what we will do is look at this hadith and try and get as much as we can from this hadith. And this is the hadith of Umar radiallahu anhu, and the ulama agreed that there are different narrations with different versions, with different additions. Abu Hurairah narrated this hadith, and other companions narrated this hadith also. Umar radiallahu anhu said that he was sitting with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam one day, and him, nahnu julus, so there was a group of them sitting with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the companions, whereupon a man came to us. His garment was exceedingly white and his hair was exceedingly black, no traces. لا يرى عليه أثر السفر, there are no traces of travel can be seen upon this man. ولا يعرفه منا أحد, and none of us knew who this man was. The point here, a point of benefit that we can gain from this, is that Islam teaches us to take our appearance very, very seriously. And your appearance, and this is what Jibril is teaching us, your appearance is also going to be reflected in your level of Islam. And it can also be affected in the way Islam is seen. Umar radiallahu anh said that his hair, his clothes were extremely white and his hair was extremely black. There were no signs of travel on him whatsoever. Now I'm telling you, I'm assuring you, my brothers, even if you live in Saudi Arabia today and you travelled from one part to another, you will see signs of travel. I mean, it's not just Saudi Arabia, but anywhere. But here he said his clothes were extremely well presented. Nobody could see any sign of travel on him, and nobody knew who he was. So he was very well kept, he was very handsome, he was very nice to look at, but none of us knew who he was. So this clearly was something that brought Umar's attention. But the point here that some of the ulama have deduced from this is that he took his appearance very, very seriously. Now this also refutes the idea that we should not indulge in the dunya with the idea of zuhd. And you will find some people wearing shabby clothes, you'll find some people, even in this country, wearing shabby clothes, not paying attention to their appearance, thinking that they are doing something that Islam condones, but this is not the case. Jibril alayhi salam from the heavens came from the top, and the way he presented himself was in the best of manners. But there's also the flip side of this, is those people who go into extremes. This is not what Islam teaches us. Islam doesn't teach us to go into extremes in preserving your appearance. But what we can conclude from all of this is that the teaching of Islam when it comes to your appearance is that it tells us to look after the favour of Allah, to portray the flavor of Allah and portray Islam in a good manner. Unfortunately, I think it can be argued, and people have looked into this also, and they've said that Islam is seen as being something strange because of the way of people's appearance in this country. Now, I'm not trying to say that you leave your identity. I'm not trying to say that you leave something which is wajib upon you, especially the niqab and the hijab, etc. But it might be strange to some people, where people are wearing something which is not really from the sunnah anyway, but they appear it to make it seem as if it's from the sunnah, or something which is cultural. And then they look at such a person and they say, look how backward these people are, etc. So the point here is that Islam has taken a lot of emphasis on the way you present yourself, and this can also affect the way Islam is presented. None of us knew him, and he sat before the Prophet ﷺ, and he rested his knees against the Prophet's knees. He sat with his knees leaning or adjacent to the knees of the Prophet ﷺ. Some of the ulama have derived from this also that here we have the etiquettes of the Talib al-Ilm. He didn't come and he didn't lie down in front of him. He didn't come and he didn't address him in a bad way. He sat with him with the utmost respect. And then he placed his knees, he placed the palms of, he put his palms on his thighs. That's what it says here in Arabic, and that's what it says in the English. فَأَسْنَدَ رُكْبَتَيْهِ He put his knees next to his knees. وَوَدَأَ كَفَّيْهِ عَلَى فَخِذَيْهِ He put his palms, his hands, on his thighs. And some of the ulama have said, whose thighs is it referring to? Who's the his? Some of them said that it refers to Jibril himself. So if you think about now the way Jibril came and he sat in front of the Prophet ﷺ, he sat with his knees next to his knees, just how you're sitting in tashahhud, tawarruk, and he put his hands on his thighs, giving the utmost attention to the teacher and to ilm. Some of the ulama have said that he put his palms on the thighs of the Prophet ﷺ, showing the level of importance and respect that he gave to his teacher. And from this, the ulama have said that it's permissible for you to touch the awrah of another Muslim, a brother with a brother or a female with another female, if there is no fear of fitna. And then he said to him, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, tell me about Islam. Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam replied and said, Islam is to testify that there is none worthy of worship except Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the messenger of Allah. That's the first pillar of Islam. The second pillar of Islam is to establish the prayers. The third pillar, to give the zakat. The fourth, fast in Ramadan. And the fifth one, to make pilgrimage to the house if you are able to make a way to it. Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali said that Islam here refers to the outer forms of submission. And these are the 5 pillars that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. Ibn Rajab, yes. Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, in his explanation of the 40 hadith, he said that this shows the outer form of submission to Allah, which are the 5 pillars. And it's not exclusive to these 5 pillars, but these are the 5 pillars that have been outlined by the Prophet ﷺ. And others from the ulama have said that all other forms of submission, outward submission, are connected to these 5 pillars. So you being good towards other people, all connected some way to these 5 pillars. So these 5 have been made the foundation of outer form of Islam. But now the question is, what is Islam? Is Islam peace? Is Islam mercy? What is Islam? What is the definition of Islam? And we've talked about this before also, and the ulama have defined Islam in saying, huwa istislam lillah, is to make submission to Allah alone, bit tawheed, with his tawheed. So it's not peace, it's not mercy. These are aspects of what comes from this. But Islam means you have submitted yourself to one Lord. And why is that important? It's important because there is no other religion on the face of this earth which has this meaning. Every other religion is either connected to a place or a caste or a person, and it connects itself to the creation. But Islam means that you connect yourself in submission to your Creator. And this is the pinnacle of all kind of theology and all kind of aqeedah. And if we can understand that there is a difference between Creator and creation, then you will have understand a great deal. And unfortunately, even within Islam, there are sects that haven't understood this differentiation. And it's led to shirk, it's led to kufr in aqeedah, it's led to all kinds of splitting. Istislam lillah bit tawheed wa inqiyad ila amrih. That you submit yourself to Allah in tawheed and you follow His commands. وَطَاعَتِهِ وَبَرَى مِنْ شِرْكِ وَأَهْلِهِ. This is the definition of Islam. Submit to Allah, your Creator. There's only one. And that you submit and you conform to what He has commanded you to do. And you make a differentiation between yourself and the people of shirk and their beliefs. We've talked about this in the previous book. It doesn't necessarily mean that you deal with people in a violent manner, in an intolerant manner, etc. Some of the ulama have said that this is very important, and this is connected to what the Prophet ﷺ in these 5 pillars of Islam, because Islam is what is apparent. Islam is what is apparent in a person. You see a person doing good deeds, saying the shahada, acting upon the commandments of Allah, then you will see that this person is upon Islam. But the more a person leaves this apparent practice of Islam, application of Islam, the more of his Islam will become less apparent. That makes sense, right? Perfect sense. But it doesn't make sense to many of the Muslim Ummah, unfortunately, today. The more you believe, the more you will show outwardly that you believe. The less you believe, or the weaker it becomes, your outwardly portray of what you believe inside will become weaker. There's a direct connection. The ulama have said, may Allah protect us, that if you leave all of your actions, then you will leave all forms of out submission, which is Islam. Islam also here refers to staying away from what is haram. So this apparency that we are talking about, actions, is not just conforming, but also staying away from what is prohibited. This is also another problem. How many times you go to a masjid, see a man with the biggest of beards, fronts off. As soon as he leaves the masjid, you will see him doing all kinds of haram. As soon as he leaves, smoking cigarettes. Allah knows best, but I'm saying this is quite common. You go to a normal masjid anywhere, this is not Islam. And this is not Islam in that person. Yes, he has good aspects, but he has foregone other aspects of Islam, which is leaving what is apparent in haram. Some of the ulama have said that this is the definition of Sirat al-Mustaqim. And this is the dua that we make every single day. Wallahu yadu ila dar as-salam wa yahdi man yasha ila Sirat al-Mustaqim. Allah is calling you to Dar as-Salam, which is a name given for Jannah. Some of the ulama said it's a daraja in Jannah. You have Firdaus, you have Dar as-Salam. But the point here is that Sirat al-Mustaqim is what we need to get success and to be saved. How can you have that? The only way you can have it is if you have Islam. Islam is not a label, Islam is not a badge, Islam is not a beard, it's not a hijab. Islam is making apparent the submission and the laws of Allah. And this includes conforming and staying away from prohibitions to the best of your ability. Everybody makes mistakes. But making tawbah is also part of Islam. Rectifying yourself is also part of Islam. Admitting your mistake is also part of Islam. Giving advice, receiving advice, all of that is part of Islam. And the stronger you become in that, and the stronger you will become in the support. This is a summary of what has been mentioned by many of the ulama. Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim has mentioned this point in many places. Then the hadith goes on to say, the man who approached him, who asked the question about Islam, said, "You have spoken the truth." Sadaqt. Umar radiallahu anh said, فَأَجِبْنَا لَهُ أَن يَسْأَلُهُ وَيُصَدِّقُهُ. We were surprised that he asked the Prophet ﷺ a question. And then when he answered, he said, "You have spoken the truth, you confirmed." How can a person ask a question and then say, "Yes, you are right"? What was the point of asking the question? And this is not something which was common at the time of the Prophet. People used to come and ask him all kinds of questions. The Prophet ﷺ used to give a hadith, as we see many a hadith here, which reformed mankind until Yawm al-Qiyamah. Man came to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Awsini, tell me something." The Prophet ﷺ, "We'll see, la taqtab, don't get angry." The ulama have said just that 2 or 3 words, that kind of advice was so profound, and the meaning was so comprehensive, it's impacted the Muslim Ummah until Yawm al-Qiyamah. From the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the best of generations, until Yawm al-Qiyamah. So it's strange that a person has come and he's asking him, "Tell me something," and then he said, "Yeah, you have spoken the truth." And it's as if Umar radiallahu anh sees something in this man, from him being Faruq, that there's something different about this situation. And this is why he is mentioning it. The man then said, "Tell me about Eman." And the Prophet ﷺ said that you believe in Allah, His angels, His books, His messengers, and the last day. And that you believe in Qadr, the good of it and the bad of it. Before we go on mentioning this in further detail, a side note here, the ulama have placed this hadith in the Babul of Eman as well. Imam Muslim placed this hadith in the Babul of Eman. What's the relevance? What's the connection between Eman and this hadith?
It's the pillars of Iman.
It's the pillars of Iman, but something more specifically. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the first fitnas to occur was the Khawarij. And then the biggest fitna that appeared after the Khawarij were the Qadariyah. The Qadariyah said that Qadr doesn't exist. Allah doesn't know. Can you imagine? Ibn Abbas was alive, some of the companions were alive. People were saying that Allah doesn't know. He has not decreed and He doesn't know. He doesn't know that something is going to happen until it happens. This was the Qadariyah. And this Aqeedah is still alive today. But this was one of the first Aqeedahs that appeared. And the ulama have placed this, Imam Muslim placed this in Bab al-Iman, and others from the ulama. Imam Nawawi explains that clearly the Prophet ﷺ said, tell me about Iman. You cannot have Iman unless you believe in Qadr, the good of it and the bad of it. And the man said again, Sadaqt, you have spoken the truth. Ibn Rajab said, what is Iman? Prophet ﷺ gave us the pillars of Iman, but here we are talking about the internal beliefs. Kullun amana billah wa malaikat, in the end of Surah Baqarah. And this is something quite important. The Prophet ﷺ said that Jibril was with him one day and an angel came down. And Jibril said to the Prophet ﷺ, this angel has come from a door that has never been opened before, from Jannah. And nobody's seen this angel before, and he's come to you. And he gave him the khawatim of Baqarah from this door, the ending of Surah Baqarah. And also in Sahih Muslim, where after this ayah was revealed, Allah said, قَدْ فَعَلْتَ لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا وَأَخْطَأْنَا, until the end. وَاعْفُ عَنَّا وَاغْفِرْ لَنَا. Allah said towards the end, for this ummah, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I will guarantee this and promise this. There's also another narration that some of the ulama have gathered and have said that from the virtues of this ummah on Yawm al-Qiyamah, that if you did something wrong from the previous if you did something wrong, then you will have to make tawbah for it before you pass away. If you didn't make tawbah before you pass away, then Allah will hold you to account on Yawm al-Qiyamah for that sin. For this ummah, these ayat have been accepted for Allah. So this ummah fall under the Mashiach of Allah. This ummah fall under the Mashiach of Allah. So you could be somebody who's an extreme criminal, but because you have Iman, you have some good deeds, you can come Yawm al-Qiyamah and Allah will forgive you. This is what the meaning of Mashiach. This is the belief of Ahlul Sunnah, that Allah will forgive people, and He forgives as He pleases according to His justice and His knowledge and His mercy on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And this is a favor for this ummah. Ibn Rajab rahimahullah said that this aspect of the hadith teaches us the Iman al-Mujmal. Iman al-Mujmal. And the next part of the hadith teaches us what is Mufassal. Mujmal refers to what is generally believed by the believer. To believe in Allah, to believe in the angels, to believe in the books, prophets, last day, and the Qadar. And the Mufassal is the application of all of the above. And this is when you take it to the next level. And from this, Ibn Rajab also mentions now that we have the definition of Islam, we have the definition of Iman. And he goes on to point out that Ahl Sunnah are in complete consensus. There is no disagreement at all that the religion for every single one of us comprises of three things: belief, statement and action. Belief, statement and action. Because now we have Islam and Iman. Allah says in the Quran, وَإِذَا تُلِيَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ زَادَتْهُ إِيمَانًا. And there's many proofs from the Quran and the Sunnah that your Iman goes up and it goes down. And it is something connected to your internal and your external. Allah says, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Iman has been put with عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. The Mujmal is Iman, to believe in these 6 pillars of Iman. And the Mufassal, Ibn Rajab said, is Ihsan. And that's going to come in the next part. The Prophet ﷺ said, Iman bid wa sabun shu'b. That Iman comprises of 70 odd branches. A'laha qawl la ilaha illallah. The highest of it is to say la ilaha illallah, and the lowest of them imat adar at-tariq. So if you see something harmful, is an action of moving something harmful. There's many proofs to support this. Ibn Rajab talks about them in detail. He brings a statement of Imam al-Awza'i, one of the Imams of the Salaf, And he said, وَكَانَ مِن مَضَى مِن سَلَفٍ لَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بَيْنَ الْعَمَلِ وَالْإِيمَانِ. It is not found from his own salaf. So you can see that he's very early. I think it's the 3rd century he passed away, or even before that. He said the people before us never differentiated between Iman and Amal. Never differentiated between Iman and Amal. And this is very important today, because you find people saying, leave me alone, my Iman is in my heart, my connection is with Allah. And with this you find them reinterpreting the Quran and the Sunnah. Why is this important? Why have they been mentioned separately? The ulama have said that when they are mentioned alone, when you say a person is a Muslim, it refers to Islam and Iman. When you say a person has Iman, it refers to Iman and Islam. But when they are mentioned together, separately, then they refer to two different things. Islam refers to the outer, and Iman refers to the inner. Some of the ulama have differed on this. Imam Bukhari and others from the ulama, from the Salaf, have said no, there is no such differentiation. But Ibn Rajab brings a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Islam alaniya. Islam is what is apparent. Wal Iman fil qalb. And your Iman is what is in your heart, is what is internal. So this clearly shows, if this hadith is sahih, that the Prophet ﷺ has given us this meaning that Islam is external and Iman is internal. Why is this important? Because a person may have Islam but no Iman. A person may have Islam, but inside he doesn't really believe. And like we have seen before, like we have said before, the more apparency you have, the stronger your Iman will become, if there is quality. If there is no quality, then what you are doing is you're increasing in Islam, but you're not rectifying your Iman. So in actual fact, you're doing more actions, some people, or they are preserving and remaining steadfast 40, 50 years in Salat. And the Prophet ﷺ told us in the Hadith, a man will come Yawm al-Qiyamah, he prayed 60 years, none of it will be accepted in Yawm al-Qiyamah. Allah protect us. Why? Because of that connection. Because of that connection. Some of the ulama have said that he wasn't praying properly, etc. But the point here is the Prophet ﷺ said, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Pray as you have seen me pray. And some of the ulama have said, and even they've said that khushu' is wajib. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ used to pray with khushu'. He told us to pray like he prayed. Not just actions. To the extent that they've said that your internal has to be the way the Prophet ﷺ prayed. It's not the correct opinion, but my point here is that there is a strong connection between Islam and Iman. Your inward and outward portrayal of what you say you believe in, what you say you act on. And like we've said now, that a person might have Islam but no Iman. Can you have Iman and no Islam? This is what we just talked about a minute ago. Imam al-Za'i said that the Salaf agreed that there is no differentiation between your internal and your external. So it's not possible for a person to say, I'm a mu'min, but I will never pray. I'm a mu'min, I don't need to pray. It's not possible. Your Iman, your internal and your external is connected. And if it's not connected correctly, then it will become corrupt. What's the dalil for this? Allah says in Surah Al-Hujurat, قَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابُ آمَنَّا. The Bedouins say that we believe. It was well known at that time that the Bedouins were harsh, some of them were hypocrites. So they've said that we believe. قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا وَلَكِنْ قُولُوا أَسْلَمْنَا. Don't say we have Iman. Say that we have submitted our outward bodily actions. Why? Because they are portraying that they have become Muslim, but internally the quality is not there. The substance is not there. This ayah was revealed when Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas praised someone in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ was giving out sadaqah, he was giving out wealth. And he didn't give it to a particular person. So Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anh said, this man, he's a very good man, why didn't you give him some? He's a believer. Prophet ﷺ said, or he is a Muslim. Sa'd ibn Waqqas said, no, he is a believer, he's a mu'min. Prophet ﷺ said, oh Muslim. So then he asked him, and he explained this differentiation to Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. However, now, like Umar radiallahu anhu said in Surah in Sahih al-Bukhari, that when the wahi was there, we used to act upon the wahi. But after the wahi ceased, we can only go by what is apparent. And that apparent is the Islam. And if the Islam appears to be strong, then we have to presume and have good thoughts and advise if we see something wrong, best of manners, that this person has good Iman. But unfortunately now, especially within Salafis, it's become the opposite. The more apparent that you show, the further they deem you to be. In what sense? They will say that this person, he attends durus, he prays in the masjid, he is doing all this khair, but if he is not with a certain group of people, then he is a mubtadi' or he is a fasiq. But this clearly goes against what we've been taught here in the religion. You can only go by what is apparent. If you see goodness in a brother, how can you presume the worst of him? And if you do see something which you don't like, then Prophet ﷺ clearly told us to advise, to hold him by his hand, وَيَخْلُوا بِهِ, take him aside, speak to him nicely. And Ibn Rajab himself wrote a treatise on this. I ask Allah that we are able to go through this book on a separate occasion, where he said that he entitled the book Al-Farq Bayn al-Nasiha wa al-Ta'yid. There's a difference between giving advice and disparaging people, insulting people. Unfortunately, the latter has become now the default. Ibn Rajab also goes on and he says, based upon all of this, we know the mistake of those who place a hukm based on a person's deeds. They place a hukm based upon person's deeds. A person cannot have a hukm placed upon him unless certain conditions have been met, and we've talked about this extensively before. But Ibn Rajab is making the point here in saying that a person has Islam and has Iman, and we deem him to have Islam and Iman even if he is weak in this. This is what we were saying just now. The wahi is stopped. So you can't say such and such, I've seen this man doing this thing, he's a munafiq. I've seen such and such, he's not really a believer. I've seen such. No, what we say is that this person has become weak, and again we advise and we try and deal with him in the best of manners. And the point is that we make him return and not create splits, and not drive him away, and not create disunity and enmity between one another. And the proof for this all is also, there's another incident that happened where Uqba ibn Malik radiallahu anhu said that we went out on an expedition, and a man said La ilaha illallah, but he was killed anyway. They went out on a battle, the enemy was captured, and he said, don't kill me, I'm a believer, La ilaha illallah. So they said they killed him. إنما قالها تعوذا. He's only said it because he wants to spare his own life. So Prophet ﷺ said, إن الله أبى على أن أقتل مؤمنا. And he said this 3 times. That Allah has refused for me to kill another believer. Allah has refused for me to kill a believer. Allah has refused for me to kill a believer. And this also clearly shows to us that the Prophet ﷺ was not sent to kill people. He would have approved otherwise. And he also said in a separate hadith, Umirtu an uqatil an-nas, I have been commanded to fight with the people, as it's been translated, but this is wrong. This is completely wrong. Ibn Rajab in Fath al-Bari, Shaykh Abdul Karim Qudair also has said that there's a difference between uqatil and muqatala. Uqatil can refer to speech, it can refer to correction, it can refer to any kind of difficulty that you have with another person, but you bear that with patience. Why? So that they can see the beauty of Islam and enter into it. And if you look at the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, that makes perfect sense. But muqatala means to annihilate, to assassinate, to completely eradicate, genocide. That's not found in the Quran and Sunnah anywhere. Anywhere. So this clearly shows that those people who are taking translations and trying to interpret it in their own way, or those people who have not gone back to the ulama of Ahl Sunnah to understanding the Quran and the Sunnah correctly, will fall into this problem. Now the problem that we face now is that those people who hate Islam and those people who are extreme in Islam are taking Islam from one another. So he reads his interpretation of Islam and he says Islam is an ideology, all of you think like that. And these people say, look at these people, they are kuffar, and we need all of the kuffar like that. So now what happens? Two levels of extreme, and we're stuck in the middle. It's very simple. Our Sheikh Salih Shathri said that the solution for all of this is so simple. Khilaf and Kabir, there's such a huge difference, there's such a huge polar opposites, but the solution is so simple. What is it? Go back to Quran and Sunnah, understand it with the way of the ulama. How many times have you spoken to someone and explained the reality of Islam and they've changed, they've literally changed. Ibn Rajab then goes on and he says, we refer to people who are making sins as being weak in Islam, but they are still considered as being Muslim. This is because our Eman internally increases and decreases, and this also then will have an impact on our external Islam, which will increase and decrease. Some of the Salaf said that Abu Bakr radiallahu anh didn't become Abu Bakr, the best of this ummah, because of his sawm wal salat, because he fasted a lot, because he prayed a lot, walakin bi shay, because he had something in his heart which was strong, and this then affected his external. So it wasn't just something external that he was portraying to say, look at me, I'm so pious. It's a strong connection. And there's many statements then he goes on and brings from the Salaf. The point here is that their outer actions were very, very strong because their inner was also strong. But the opposite is also true. If your outer is weak, then your inner is going to be weak. But we also learn from all of this that a person's outer could be weak, outer could be strong, and you could be deceived by it. And this is what we're going by, the apparency of it. But the internal is not there. And our accountability individually is all with Allah. So what this should create in us is a sense of self-rectification and self-account, if anything. What this hadith also teaches us is how, and the emphasis in making the inner stronger. And this is what Ibn Rajab then goes on to quote 1, 2, 3, 4 hadith, talking about how you can make your internal stronger. ثلاثة من كن فيه وجد فيه بهن حلاوة الإيمان. He quotes the hadith that if a person has certain traits, he will find the beauty and the sweetness of Iman. Jubair ibn Mut'im, one of the kuffar at that time, heard the Prophet ﷺ give a khutbah in Mina, and then he heard him talking about ikhlas and talking about being sincere to the Muslims, and he said, no, khalas, this is Islam, I'm going to submit. And then and this is in the Sunnah, then he heard him reciting the ayat of Tur, and he said that this is as if my soul flew My internal became so strong. So my external had to replicate that, and he became a Muslim. Prophet ﷺ told Umar on a separate occasion that if a person has good deeds and he has bad deeds and he protects those good deeds and he is shameful of those bad deeds, then he has Iman. You are firm inside and your external might become weak at sometimes, but you are affected by that. You actually are concerned by that. Ihsan. If we have time for Ihsan, I think the Iqam is in 20 minutes. So then he said, Sadaqt again. And then the hadith continues. The man said, now tell me about Ihsan. Prophet ﷺ said that you worship Allah as though you see Him. And if you are not able to see Him, then you know that He sees you. Allah says in the Quran, وَأَحْسِنُوا وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Have Ihsan, because Allah loves those people who have Ihsan. بَلَى مَنْ أَسْلَمَ وَجْهُهُ لِلَّهِ, who have externally submitted to Allah, وَهُوَ مُحْسِن, and he has Ihsan. فَلَهُ أَجْرٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ. So here now there's a next level of quality of tafsil. We had the mujmal, now we have the mufassal, like Ibn Rajab talked about. What is Ihsan? Prophet ﷺ explained to us here, Ihsan is to act every single moment of your life as though you can see your Lord. It's not possible. It's not possible. And if that is not possible, believe me, for some people it is. If you read Seerah of the Salaf, the way they used to act, it's been narrated by Hamad. He said that if he was going to die this evening, he wouldn't increase in anything. There's nothing extra that he can do in his life which would get him closer to Allah if you were going to tell him he's going to die today. But if you don't realize that, then you realize that your Lord is watching you. How many times have people woken up Salatul Fajr? And yeah, it's difficult, but your eyes are open. You've got a little bit of time to get to the masjid. How many of us have thought, okay, my Lord is looking at me right now and He's giving me tawfiq to wake up, and if He looks at me more, He's continually looking at me. If He's continually looking at me, I can lift this sheet. I'm going to do it for His sake. And He's continually looking at me. And you sit there as a slave on the edge of your bed. I say, my master, I'm going to get. How many times have you thought of this kind of process going through your head? My master, I'm going to make wudu for your sake. I'm fighting my sake, my desires, my lusts for you. Walk to the bathroom as a humble servant. I give Fajr as the example because this is probably the hardest thing that anybody can do. Now he is sacrificing something that his body physically needs, probably something that he bodily physically wants. Siyam is a whole month of that. How many times have people been there in the last third of the night when nobody's there? He's reciting the Quran, he's contemplating on the Quran, and he's saying, my Lord, who's watching me right now, these are your words and I'm reciting them for you. It's a connection. It's a connection. It's not a imagination. It's not a surreal or abstract being or thought. This is what Ihsan is about. And the ulama, Ibn Rajab here now has talked about Ihsan having parts. The biggest part of it is taqwa. Taqwa is to do what Allah has told you to do and to stay away from what Allah is telling you to stay away from. So now when you have woken up, what is Allah telling you to do? Lift that sheet, go make wudu and go to the masjid. This is taqwa. Save yourself by putting that sheet back on and turning around and close your eyes again. This is taqwa. Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا وَهُمْ مُحْسِنُونَ. Taqwa is needed for ihsan. But taqwa has two parts, and these are the parts that have been mentioned here, and this has been mentioned by other ulama also in a different way. Taqwa is ihsan. It's as if you can see Allah. Ibn Rajab said in another place that the day begins and the day ends with Ihsan. And this is the parable that I was trying to draw with Salat al-Fajr just now. He says, why is there no Sunan Rawatib after Salat al-Fajr and after Salat al-Asr? Does anybody know? After Dhuhr, after Maghrib, after Isha. But there's two salawats here. We have Fajr and Asr. There is no Sunan Rawatib. Huh? Because the angels come down now. I mean, they come down, but why are you not praying at that time when the angels come down? This is the question. Some of the ulama have said that you start your day and you end your day as a slave. And the most beloved thing that Allah loves for you to do at that moment in time, after Salat al-Fajr, after Salat al-Asr, is to engage in connecting yourself with your Lord. Dhikr, dua, recitation of the Quran, anything that is going to draw you closer to your Lord. وَاذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ عَشِيًّا بُكْرَةً وَعَشِيًّا, in the morning, evening, فِي الْغُدُوِّ وَالْآصَالِ. So this is the point, that you start your day as a servant, as a slave, as if you can see him. Anas radiallahu anhu said that a man came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, teach me something that if I was going to do it, I would be successful. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when you stand to prayer, Sal salat muwadda. Make this as if it is your final prayer. فَإِنَّكَ إِن كُنْتَ لَا تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. When you are making this dhikr, salah is a form of dhikr. When you are making this dhikr, create a connection between you and your Lord. Because even though if you do not see him, surely he sees you. The second point of Ihsan is that if it is not possible for you to see your Lord, then you are conscious of the fact that he is always accounting you and looking down. Ibn Rajab then goes on to say, to know that Allah is watching every single aspect of your life and that he is going to question you. But how can you reach acting as if you see Allah? Ibn Rajab said, once you perfect the second type, you can get to the first type. Does that make sense? Once you perfect the fact that you cannot see Allah but you know that he is seeing you, then eventually your actions will become so pure, with substance, you can reach to a state where you are acting as if that you can see Allah. Not that you can see Allah, but the level of consciousness that you have of your master. But Ibn Rajab said that it takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of training, and one of the biggest things you need for it is ikhlas. Ikhlas in internal and ikhlas in worship. Ihsan includes taqwa. Ihsan also includes ikhlas. This is a separate part that has been mentioned here, because ikhlas means that you seek the happiness and the reward of Allah. How can you act as if you see Allah when you don't act in a manner to please him and to gain his Jannah? Ihsan can only come about knowing that he watches you. And when this becomes to the higher level, we just talked about now, it is as if the unseen becomes full yaqeen in the heart of that mu'min. It's as if yaqeen becomes firm in the heart of that mu'min. And this teaches us now that when we go through trials individually, when we go through trials as a ummah, if your yaqeen is strong, then your level of taqwa and ihsan will be strong. Your level of iman will be strong. Your level of Islam will be strong. If your yaqeen is weaker, then your level of support and iman, ihsan and Islam will weaken accordingly. Why? Because your consciousness is not there. You go through a difficulty in your life, you panic. You look to the creation, not the creator. Then Ibn Rajab brings a lot of proofs, and we kind of go over that very quickly and skip that. What are some of the virtues of ihsan? Then he goes on to some of the virtues of ihsan. Allah says in the Quran, لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا الْحُسْنَى وَزِيَادَةً. Those people who have ihsan, Allah will give them ihsan in the akhirah. Allah will give them the reward of ihsan in the akhirah, and then He will give them the ziyada. He will give them even more than their actions equate to. The Prophet ﷺ said in the Hadith, ziyada here refers to being with Allah and seeing His face. This is what will lead to a person having strong level of ihsan. If you get closer to Allah, He will get closer to you. In the well-known Hadith Qudsi, if you remember Allah, He will remember you. أَنَا مَا أَذَنَّ أَبْدِي بِي, I am with the way my servant thinks of me. If he thinks of me good, then I'll be with him good. If he is stronger, then he is strong. If there is a connection, there will be a connection. If he remembers me, I will remember him. If he remembers me in a gathering, I will remember him in a gathering. If he gets close to me with a handspan, I will come close to him with an arm's length. If he comes to me walking, like we came to the masjid walking, every single footstep that you just took, Allah came to you running for that every footstep. So the conclusion here is that Islam has external, Iman is internal, and Ihsan comprises of both. And the stronger the internal of khawf and raja and tawakkul and sabr and yaqeen, etc., they will impact the external. Then the man asked him about the hour. Prophet ﷺ said, the one questioned about it knows no more than the questioner. Unseen belongs only to Allah, not to Jibril, the closest of angels, and not to Muhammad ﷺ, the closest of messengers. So he said, then tell me about the signs. Tell me about the signs. Allah says in the Quran, يَسَأَلُونَكَ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ أَيَّانَ مُرْسَاهَا قُلْ إِنَّمَا عِلْمُهَا عِنْدَ رَبِّي لَا يُجَلِّي لِوَقْتِهَا إِلَّا هُوَ ثَقُلَتْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. We cannot comprehend the information about the hour. So it's actually a mercy for us that we don't know about the hour. We won't be able to hack it. لَا تَأْتِيكُمْ إِلَّا بَغْتَةً. The hour is only known to Allah, and some of the ulama have said that this is the pinnacle of rububiyyah. Why? He is the one who controls life. He is the one who gives death. He is the one who places the soul. He is the one who will take back the soul. It's not for Jibril. It's not for Muhammad ﷺ. He is the one who created, and He is the one who will end the creation. And some of the ulama, as we have seen in the books of Aqidah, have included belief of the unseen and belief of the hour and belief of its signs within the chapters of Usul al-Din. فَهَلْ يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَّا السَّاعَةِ. They're waiting for the day of judgment. أَنْ تَأْتِيهُمْ بَغْتَةً فَقَدْ جَاءَ أَشْرَاطُهَا. Its signs have come. It's a matter of belief for us to accept these signs. Now, why are the signs important? Someone might ask. Why is Allah giving us signs? Why doesn't He just end the days, end the dunya? Imam al-Qurtubi said that there is great hikmah in it. That this dunya has become pure with the coming of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all the Anbiya and the Rusul. But towards the end of time, it will become corrupt again. And these signs are for us to see our own fault, for us to take reckoning from the punishment, to turn back to Him in goodness. And all of this is a mercy and a justice from Allah, because it gives rise to the truth. It shows that success is in the akhirah, not the dunya. The ulama have said that the general idea of the hour has been given to Prophet ﷺ and Jibril, but the specific is only known to Allah. When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? What will it look like? Only Allah knows. Can you make that then? Yeah.
أشهد أن لا